Hello and welcome to today's episode of Mitten Backstage. Thanks so much for joining us. Today I have with me Conrad Schaak. Now, you might recognize that name if you live around the Grand Rapids area from Conrad Shock The Noise, but he also is involved in a bunch of different projects. I recently worked with him and Dante Cope on some videos through Dogtown Studio, and that involved some remixing of some tunes, an electronic, instrumental, vocal, hybrid, hip hop, a fusion of styles and sounds. And, all these things are part of the overarching idea he had. Culture M4A, the label that he created over the course of the pandemic to help support all sorts of artists around West Michigan, whether it's getting things pressed to tape or assistance with getting their music streaming and published. He's also consulted as a producer and a studio engineer. He does a lot of different things, and it was great getting to sit down and chat with him. If you like today's conversation and you want to support podcasts like these that I create, you can head on over to patreon.com/Dutcher Snedeker. There, you can get early access to all of the podcast episodes in audio and video formats, as well as exclusive merch and more. You can also go to DutcherSnedeker.com to check out everything else that I'm up to around the internet. And don't underestimate that social currency. Share, like, follow, all the different prompts that you have on the different platforms. You can engage with those things and help push my content out into the algorithmic ether so that more people can enjoy these types of conversations. And those likes and clicks go a long way. So I appreciate those as well. All right, let's get right into today's conversation with Conrad Schaak.
Yeah, had to use my phone. My driver on my interface is not up to date with my software, so I couldn't get all my mics and everything routed through. So using the old cell phone.
Yeah, I had issues with the interface I bought from a friend used, and he must have been using an older Mac OS because I tried using it with Windows 10, and I updated all the drivers, everything was looking good, and then every time I would try to record with it, it would just have this super distorted, you couldn't hear anything. It just sounded like an electrical signal.
No, yeah, not what you want.
Yeah, and then the same thing with monitoring. It was I couldn't get even just a clean pass-through signal before tracking. So it's well, this isn't working.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I'm probably just gonna sell it for cheap and just be hey, I couldn't get this to work, but maybe you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be a communication thing with the computer. I did not take that into account. I recently was looking for a new computer for a while. My older computer I'd had since 2014 or so. So it was, when it came to running recording software or anything like that, it was kind of a little rough. And so I tried to get something better. And so I was doing all this research and didn't do the research of hey, does my interface connect to this? So I saw, I got this. It's the Mac Mini that they have right now. And so I got that, and I was oh yeah, this thing is great. And then it said Thunderbolt, it has Thunderbolt cable on the back of it. And I'm sweet, that's my interface, Thunderbolt. This is perfect. And then I get it and realize that there's Thunderbolt 2 and Thunderbolt regular, or it's Thunderbolt 2 and 3 or something like that. And essentially, new Thunderbolt is just Apple's way of saying USB-C. And so, yeah, I have one that's these old things right here, the older kind of Thunderbolt cables that are not quite
right,
not quite a USB-C. And yeah, it was rough. I had to go in and shut down, I had to start the computer in a weird way and disable the firewall and then allow certain things to come through. I was able to get it to work, so I didn't have to get a different computer, which was nice.
Yeah, I was hearing from Isaac Berkowitz that he went in and bought one of those newer MacBooks with the chip, whatever the M1
Yep,
or M2 or whatever is out right now.
that's exactly what I got. Yeah,
Yeah, and he was he was saying
yeah.
the same thing of like he went to the the Genius bar and it was like, okay, so this thing will be good for music, right? And he was like, yeah, it's perfect for music. It runs well, everything's great. And then he's like, okay, because I'm gonna buy it, but I want to know it's just ready to be used with all of the the software I want to use it for. And he's like, yeah, it'll be great for music. And then he's been trying to use it with Desmond Jones for like stuff they're recording, and it's like certain plugins won't work, like certain functions aren't
Hmm.
working, like just weird problems.
Yeah, so far I've been able to. There's one plugin that I'm doing without, and it's kind of something that I didn't really need as much anyway. It was like a reference program. I mean, it's a great thing to have, but like it's not anything that actually changes the sound of anything like that I'm doing. So like
Right.
it yeah, that was the only one that I couldn't get to work no matter how hard I tried. Like a few of them I had to like install some of my plugins like 3 times before it would work. Like no, there was some weirdness. There was some weirdness.
Yeah, it's well, and that's been, I don't know, with the last year having, some purchases of new tech, there's like certain gear that like the what is it, the Boss RC505 loop station, like
Hmm.
I've only like done surface level stuff with it, and I know, I see Hannah use it for our Earth radio shows, and I'm like, there's so
Hmm.
much more I could use this for that I haven't even tried yet.
Oh yeah, trying to navigate. I more recently getting into that MPC. I after our performance that we did, I kind of started to figure the thing out a lot more, and I I was like, oh man, I gotta like do like more like just do more of it because it's just constantly. I mean, hey, you get better at whatever you're doing, and so I was practicing with it a ton, and like a lot of the YouTube videos that I was finding are guys that are like just flipping through these things like super quick and they're not even using the screen on it because they've been using MPCs for like Lord knows how long. And so
Yeah.
like they've been using them and they can just like from the button navigation just like fly through everything, and I'm just trying to keep up with it sometimes was kind of difficult because it's just like, oh my gosh, like trying to learn on something, and like the 505, that's what it's called, right?
Yeah,
The
the
Roland.
yep.
Yeah, that one doesn't have like a screen aside from that little like alarm clock looking box, right?
Yeah, it's like very basic, like text window type. Yeah, not a
Yeah.
full screen, or not any bells and whistles.
You get into something and you realize you're like shifting really like crazy stuff, or like yeah, I don't know. I find it was definitely a learning curve when I was trying to use it for sure. That it took me a second to get comfortable with it.
Right. Yeah, and well, and I feel like there's also that, like, you're the learning curve of new gear, but then it's also like you buy it knowing it can do a thing that's working for, like, oh, I bought a loop station, I can now loop things. But then within the loop station you're like, oh, this thing can multi-layer on these 4 tracks, so I could like just literally hook up instruments to a mixer and just like arrange using this, like just demo out random loop ideas for songs.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. I love it. I more recently the EP that I'm releasing on October 30th. That one, it's pretty much everything was made from using the MPC, and not every track like is exclusively done this way, but a few of them I was taking it and using it because it can be a host device, and so I was doing a lot of stuff where I would go through and like set up the MIDI data and take certain keyboards, and then I was using this thingy that we used in the Dogtown thing, the voice thing, and I realized I can like take certain progressions and such and like automatically set it to being under the vocals, so I can like live have like, you know, harmony or whatever underneath, like already set for this thing to like go into, so that I can kind of like do live performance of vocals, still have all the cool like auto tune and like all the chords and all that kind of stuff without having to like, I'm going to sing this part, do a bunch of studio stuff, then I'm going to do this thing and do a bunch of studio stuff. It was cool to like, there was a few tracks where I did them all like entirely live with like the vocals and doing stuff like that, and doing sending it out to like drum machines and using like the external drum machine, because you can like, that thing will remember everything, and then it's all locked in, get it sent out to like an analog drum machine, run that through a bunch of pedals, delays. You know, I was putting like fuzz on the kick drums and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, that's when I feel like more people that I see, even if they're not like, you know, people I know directly, like I feel like more people are buying gear knowing that the options with gear are endless. They're not just, you know, like guitarists are always going to buy guitar pedals, but they might be using them with synths in the studio, or they, you know, like a beat maker might buy a, you know, like an MPC type thing, but maybe they trigger other samples that are not just like, you know, they bought it to record drums, but now they're, you know, branching out and and trying, you know, what if I MIDI controlled it with this thing, or what if I hooked it up to a semi-modular rig? What would happen? Like more people are trying to, experiment with it.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah, I'm really trying to figure out how I want to do it in like, because I've done a few, like I said, live recordings like that. And so I'm kind of like going through now, and I've been working on like getting all of those things set out into like a live performance, like one session kind of thing. Before I was any situation I've ever been on it, I could just set up like one song and that would be it. But then like going in between sessions on that thing is not very smooth, and you're like sitting there like, all right, let's get this done. Like, all right, like get to the next thing. It's got to load it. And so like, it's best to like just make a master session for your whole show and have like different like sequences throughout the whole thing. And you can like basically like export a whole song or project you have as a sequence. And then you just kind of like build like a live show thing. And so now I'm trying to work on like trying to take some of those elements into like, okay, how can I like do this in a live setting to where like I have all these parts moving, and then like just plan out like, okay, I have this controller thing where if I have, say, people playing with me, like I don't need like the keyboard parts, so I can cut all the keyboard parts for this performance and just like keep those blank. And if I'm gonna be, say, like doing like a solo or something, I can cut out some parts or something, or have it set up to do that, have the keyboard set to control something in certain bars. Even you can like, one bar the keyboard could be controlling a synthesizer, and then next it can be like your vocoder notes or whatnot. Like it's really endless in what you can do with it. And so I'm trying to like, I want to do it in a way with like with people, and try and have like a live element, sort of people interacting off of it and stuff like that. And so yeah, that's been my homework as of late.
Yeah, it reminded me of like the stuff we did. It reminded me of when I played in Mizpah years ago. And that was like, you know, Ben Geisert had like all the stuff produced and all the, you know, sampling and keyboards and other things, and then sang. And then I was just, you know, with each track trying to pick out little ideas or motifs I wanted to, you know, like improvise parts around. And then, you know, having Brad there as kind of a soloist, I could play off of him, and then Becca would sing backups, so I could kind of, you know, I could choose to focus on a lot of different things. And I wasn't really, you know, it wasn't like, oh, this song, you know, it's this progression. It's like there is a progression, but it's also a lot of like starting and stopping samples and reacting to stuff.
Yeah, it is sort of freeing in a way, knowing that you can I don't know, sort of just it's really stark. It's really like jagged at times, and you can lean into it if you want to. You totally can. Like, oh man, I love listening to a lot of I feel like a lot of like Earl Sweatshirt type samples, or a lot of his people on Tan Cressida or Cresceda. I don't know how they say their label, but the beats, there's so many like tuned, like up-tuned gospel singers just like ba 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 ba, just like repeating and things like that in the background, and it's really cool. But oh my gosh, it's also just like it sounds like you're in the studio working on a section and you're like trying to remove that like hiss from the vocal part, so you're just hearing like ba 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 like over and over again. And it's like, let's make a song out of this. Like
Right. Yeah, well, and I think of like the recent session we did with Earth Radio. Some of those, some of the things that'll be in the final product were purely because the guest producer, Paul Clemson, he after us sending demos and he had heard our previous albums, he understood that we like adding a lot of layers to stuff. And the last two albums that we tracked at Third Coast, it's always been like, all right, let's track, the dry signal of the band, and then we'll manipulate stuff after the fact, unless we want to like overdub something with a specific effect. It's like, oh, we got all these pedals, let's figure out some ideas. But then Paul was like, oh, why don't we just set up, this table and, have a mixer and run a chain with, a bunch of pedals. And then he just took an aux sends from the SSL into that mixer and then back into the SSL. So for every dry track we have, there's a wet track where he's just like manipulating,
that's really
whatever
cool.
pedals. And we had already added, there's one thing we added that it was like, we heard it and we put it in like this little tiny like bar of space, and none of us could say definitively where it came from unless we looked at the track name. We were just like, this doesn't like, it sounds like something you'd hear on like a ship, it almost sounds like a metal door, like opening, but also kind of like in the distance. Like it was a weird, like a sort of a ping, but also like metallic. I don't know. It was, or maybe like hitting a metal hull of a boat with like, I don't know, some sort of like metal hammer or something. Just like like, but the warmth of like a gong, like a felt mallet hitting a gong. So it was just like, we don't know what this is, but it works for this spot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it was when I was doing the it could have been just like some cross things happening, like things just hitting inside of pedals weird. I haven't really ran a lot of drum machines like through guitar pedals and stuff, and so there was something that was happening with the overheads on my track where when it was all hitting the mixer and going into the computer, like the overheads were really like, I don't know, really like kind of nasty. They had some highs to them. They were really quiet though. They weren't that loud. And whenever the kick drum came in, there was like this weird, like, it almost sounded like there was like a limiter interacting with like the kick drum and hi-hats a little bit. Like there was just like some weird crispiness. Like the hi-hats were getting like eaten away by it. And I wasn't running them through separate pedals and everything. And I'm like, not sure what made them like do that in the whole thing. I also had my preamps like tanked going into my like, so that could have also had something to do with it. Like, but yeah, it was such a cool sound though. But yeah, I love experimenting, just like getting, all of these different things set up, like getting the dry signal as well, getting like a few different, like, so you can have some control in post. But yeah, it's fun doing all that mixing and stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's we just had one mixing session last week, and now I think I want to say our next one's in like November.
Okay.
So we're just, pacing it out. This is the earliest we've recorded in an album cycle since our first record. Usually
Oh,
we're
nice.
usually we're recording in like January, February, and then like spring, summer time is when we put out the record. But
Mm-hmm.
it'll be nice to like get stuff done a little bit sooner, and then we can, tee up shows and try and have like that, everything's aligning. We got the promo,
Mm-hmm.
the album's like not only finished, but it's printed to CD already, and
Yeah.
get ahead of it a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I actually got on top of my merch for this stuff. I'm doing like cassette tapes like again, but they
Oh yeah.
are false cassette tapes. They look like cassette tapes, but they're not. They're USB drives.
Ooh.
And so I'm doing these as like I don't know, just messing around with a different format for one of them. But I was able to like get everything all like ordered way ahead of time. I got the poster all set up, and like I think it's just like I'm not as gig busy as I have been in the past. Like I had like usually I'm like, oh gosh, like when am I gonna find time? Like, oh yeah, practice this day, we can like go over that song we gotta record at some point, like and you're constantly working on gigs and stuff. So I feel like I've had a little more time to just like get ahead of that kind of stuff, but it feels good. It feels really nice having like I don't know. I find unless it's like an album release or something, I'm not really always spending time on like the nuances of like what I'm going to plan out for each set. And it's kind of just like, yeah, it's nice having that time to like, you know, plan it out, get a nice like, plan some moments, some weird dropouts, some extra stuff that you're not just playing the songs through as if you would if you were just like kind of not have like didn't have as much time to play on them and stuff like that.
Right. And I was thinking, yeah, like I've been thinking about that with I recently talked to this pianist Jordan Anderson, who plays in Sabbatical Bob and plays with Vincent Chandler's group out in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And he he was talking about just, or I guess we were both talking about like, having, because as jazz musicians, a lot of the times we get these gigs and there's not a lot of time to put stuff together, but there's this shared repertoire that we can pull from on the fly and, create our own arrangements out of those moments. But, having the residency earlier this year and being able to like kind of add to the repertoire of two different groups over 4 months was like, that it hadn't happened in a while. Just being able to like, grow a project on a regular basis rather than like, oh, we put out an album and then the next, 8 months we're going to be playing a lot of that album, and maybe we played it a month before the release.
Yeah, half the time you're figuring out the songs on stage, like like trying out some new ones, like
yeah, throwing in random ideas, or like I think of like with our song Mother's Breath, we've been, and it all started just with like, I think the feel was teased and then Justin kind of leaned into the feel with the bass line. We've been doing the latter chunk of it where it restarts on the riff and it slowly builds back up, and kind of features drums. It's been like an Afro beat feel. And with that little change, it's like, oh, now we have this new way of interacting in the band, but also a new way of thinking about, it's another way to present this song. So yeah, it's fun when those moments happen too, where you try an idea on stage, the band follows, and then you're like, oh, maybe we should just have this be the live version now.
Oh man, with the noise, it was so bad to the point of where like I feel like we played It was on our second album, Outside the Dream. I think that song had like 3 different choruses because I just like we couldn't figure out one that we liked, and so
Right.
I kept like writing new ones and bringing them. And we're like, oh, we'll try this one now, and like we kept playing it with different choruses and just trying them out to see which one we liked the most and which one felt right and everything. And we landed on one eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the main focus is your solo stuff right now, and the noise is kind of in the periphery, or is there noise stuff happening in the background too?
So right now it kind of started just with COVID, like kind of taking the wind out of our sails a little bit. I was trying to think about just like, I started just thinking, oh man, like what am I going to do to be able to keep doing music? Like if I want to keep doing it, like I was in a spot where I had just quit my job to like start doing music full time, and I had like got a bunch of residencies booked up, and it wasn't like crazy busy, but I had like 2 gigs a weekend and enough to like, you know, make a good foothold and whatnot.
Right.
And so I started it, and then like right when I did it, it all, yeah, you know,
all
everything happened. And so, yeah, from there I started kind of thinking just about like, oh man, there's going to be a lot of people that want to like release music over like quarantine and whatnot. And so I started just, at the time I had been really into recording for the noise. We were working on an EP at that time, and we were self-recording it, doing all of the stuff for it. Cody is crazy talented. Cody Schoenberg. He is always, I mean, he works at River City. He's got his gig there and everything, but yeah, just his work in general I always enjoy. He's always got it's just a good ear. And so like and everyone in the band has a good ear too. Like August, they just mixed their whole and mastered and did everything for their last album. Like, yeah, it was honest. So we were just like, we've done the thing where we've worked with producers, and we had like kind of let people not like take our ideas, but I don't know, I've always been open to like, when you listen to this, what do you think? Like, the producer on our first few albums, he would be like, oh, this is cool, but like, you guys stick to these kind of chords. Like, what if we like break these up and start adding in some 7th chords here randomly and things like that? And I was always open to it, and like the vocal production, I always was trying to bury my vocals in the mix and everything and all that. So we kept like working with other producers, and then we decided we wanted to do that. And so we were working on recording a bunch. And so as we worked on that, I started working on just some solo stuff to record. And then I had also been working with Bedroom Ceilings on some songs that they were doing. I had the Rhine Experience start contacting me, and that was kind of when I had like the idea to start doing Culture and doing the whole label thing, where really the whole idea was just to celebrate people doing in the community, doing something where like people can really, if you're willing to put in the time and effort, like, oh, we need like a video person. Like, I just really was trying to make it just like a place where tons of people can like cross-reference, like, oh yeah, like this person told me, like, when people still contact me for video stuff, I have a few friends that do video, and if people want to try to like, I don't know, if it's a project they need help like with like getting out mixing and mastering, like recording can be kind of tough at times, and a lot of bands that try to start off doing it's easy to like get interfaces and get the whole thing set up. And I even will just go out and just help bands set up, show them like levels, things, you know, like how to like set things up, do all that, get all the tracks, walk them through mixing and mastering. And at this point, I've just kind of been doing it in a way of like, and some bands like the Rhine Experience, they're already great at like recording and like mixing and all that stuff. So yeah, I started working and doing a lot of that sort of process and focusing my time and effort on it. And I've always loved that side of it. Like I was always from the beginning obsessed with like songwriting and like certain tones in like a song, and like, oh yeah, like this song is super cool and it's like all smooth, and then like the bridge hits and it's just like grimy now, and like the chords are all like changing, and I've always been really into the writing and studio side of stuff. And so I wanted to flex that as much as I could and keep on doing that stuff. And so, yeah, now though, as time's been going on and I've been able to get out and start playing gigs and stuff, I've still been working with other people, like helping as much as I can with recordings and stuff, but I kind of want to shift my sights now to seeing if I can like start cultivating some like shows and bills and things and doing things like put on by the label with bands that have been on it, trying to do some kind of now shifting since shows are a little bit more of a thing and maybe not big things because as time's going on, I'm sure things are going to get, probably going to pull back the reins a little bit. But for the time being, just been working on as much as I can. But yeah, I wouldn't say the noise is in the back burner. We've been playing some gigs as of late. Me, Mike, and Olivia have played as a trio and doing just like 2 guitars, piano, vocals, setting up. And it's fun. It works for like going and playing just some, random bar gigs, brewery stuff, like those types of things. And it's been nice to like kind of sit down and like hear like when the noise is all like freaking fuzzed out and we have everything blaring all the time. It's cool to like hear the like small like stripped down sections of it. And so I definitely, and we've been talking about working on stuff more. So
yeah,
I still am really passionate about the label stuff and want to keep on like trying to just do stuff for the Grand Rapids area and keep on trying to like, just do something like to kind of help with just like access to things and really like pricing if bands don't have like a good, like a lot of like a budget. I'm like, I've just been doing this for like a year and a half, 2 years. Like I can like do it for cheap. Like I'm just trying to build a, kind of like resume as well. And so, yeah, it's been fun. I dig it. And yeah, so I'm hoping now to like go in with the noise, and I've been writing a bit and interested to see where it goes. My writing style's been flipping quite a bit. And I mean, that's good though.
Yeah. It's always good to have like, I don't know, some other part. I mean, it's kind of why I do so many random things in the, to make up a career. It just helps, learning a little production helps you, even if you're not going to produce, you understand how to communicate with an engineer, or like doing live sound, how to ask for what you need in the monitors and not just be confused. And like, how to break down, I don't know, those communication barriers that sometimes happen between, staff and artists. And then, in your case, it's like you have the label, but also are an artist and are doing production. So now you're able to like kind of tie all of that into like a curation project of sorts.
Really from like the start of it to the end of it, I can help people get something out. And my thought is too, and trying to like do merch, and I've been doing the website and things like that, where I have like Justin, who he goes by number 99. He does all of the visuals and all of those types of things that for culture, he's always helping out with it. He helps out a lot with the cassette tapes that we've done. He's a graphic design wizard and just has all kinds of like ideas. And he's just always full of all kinds of cool ideas. I don't know if you've seen Ryan's new album cover. It's called The Hits.
The Hits. Yeah, I did see that.
And it's like got like a bunch of like price tag stickers, like discounted like a ton of times. And it looks like that classic, like, oh, this is that like Sublime Greatest Hits CD that was chilling in, what is it, FYE? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
It looks like one of those. It's like 7 hours of bonus features. And like none of these stickers are real. It's just all on the album cover, like art. But yeah, I find it super cool. But yeah, he helped also with the EP release poster for the 30th coming up for my new release, which is super crazy looking. But yeah, no, I always, he's a super fun guy to work with, but he has been helping with kind of like I'm more focused around like I've had a lot of help with luckily just people helping me when I was learning how to record. I had a lot of people explain to me like, hey, like for just setting up a mic in a room, like what to watch for like how to like make sure you're not like you hear rushing or like not hearing rushing, or like how to make sure like you're using like something to like just having your like references or things up to like kind of guide your process and make sure you're not like getting off too much or anything, or it's just handy information to have, or like if something's clipping, or even if it doesn't look like it's clipping, it might be coming in too hot or something, and all kinds of things like that. And so starting from there, it's kind of, I don't know, there's a lot in recording that can go awry. There's a lot that can go awry, and there's a lot in mixing that I feel like, when you first start mixing or when people are doing it, it's a hard process to like get down and find your like kind of rules that you use, and kind of, I mean, everything in music is situational. I feel like you always have a rule just to be like, but in this situation, it's not the case at all. Like,
Right.
and so,
yep.
yeah, I don't know. So I've enjoyed being able to be like, yeah, let's start here. Oh, like you guys know how to record and mix, sick. Like, but you need help with mastering and getting stuff out to Spotify. Like, with like having like a label account through like DistroKid, I can have like so many friggin' bands on there, and it's like no extra cost for me to do it. And so I can just help. I'm not taking people's rights or anything, or like taking their masters. Like they still keep 100% of everything. I always like sign stuff so that they know that, and like give them like a little thing so that I'm like, I'm not taking anything. I'm just like trying to make this sweet. You went through us, and like usually if people like pay for mastering or something, I'll just be like, I'll just do that for you, or I'll, oh, like you're paying for mastering and this, like, do you want cassette tapes? Like at that point, or like, do you need merch, t-shirts, those types of things? Cause yeah. And having like finding people locally who do screen printing that are willing to help out with that kind of stuff. It's just been a really cool experience. Like basically just trying to, between me and Justin, just trying to build a one-stop shop to like get something out if you need help getting it out, which it's been fun.
But yeah, I think about the next couple months, and the gigs are a little bit lighter, which at first I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, should I like, fill it with more stuff? And I know that most of the work I'm doing will, it'll cover whatever expenses I need for these next couple months. And it'll actually be kind of nice to, not have to drive up north most weekends for like a wedding, or, I was up north this weekend for gigs. There's one trip outside of the state that Earth Radio is doing. Other than that, it's like I'm pretty much around the area. And I think it'll, I'm looking forward to the time that, you'd think last year would have been perfect for, which is just like being able to carve out time to work on personal projects and, spend time like also not working, like, and
absolutely
real rest instead of the kind of rest that's like, well, I don't know what's happening. Hopefully things improve.
Yeah. No, I have been taking a lot of, ever since this all happened, I feel like my time spent like actually practicing my instrument has gone up, and like just trying to, I don't know if it's just because I had more time to like sit in my room and just get bored of what I was hearing myself play, so I had to like figure something else out. I'm like, man, I can't just play this the same, like so I no, more recently I've been trying to find a lot more time to just like work on like my instrument, just writing, trying not to rush things. Like this last EP that I just finished up, it's probably only like 15 minutes long, and I've probably spent more time on this 15 minutes than like I've spent on a lot of other projects. But it's been a cool experience, and yeah, just challenging myself, keep trying to like change up songwriting techniques and stuff, really trying to like break up my like, oh, like I do this pattern a lot or something, or just like find new like inspirations for song like chord progressions and things like that. And yeah, no, it's been fun.
Yeah, and well, and I also found out actually today. Uh, I had already, well, I guess I had already been confirmed for next January, February. I'm at West Shore Community College again, working
Okay.
with their theater department as kind of a rehearsal accompanist and,
Yeah.
you know, the bridge between the pit and the cast. This will be my third production with them, and you know, those 2 months always felt kind of like a working vacation because my only responsibilities were like, all right, Monday through Thursday, you're gonna have an evening rehearsal. It'll be like 3.5 hours, and you know, the rest of the day is up for whatever you know, like for 2019, it was really getting a handle on booking, and that's partially why Earth Radio's schedule was so busy that year. And then you know, last year I was able to do it right before the shutdown, and that was like time to actually really rest because, you know, whatever I had, I can't say for certain it was COVID, but you know, before COVID, it was like I like December I had went on tour with Mark and then came home, got sick for a couple weeks, and then I, you know, had the holidays, and then I started in Ludington, got sick like the second or third week, you know, got better enough to fly over to NAM, went to NAM, came back, got sick for a week and a half, and also was like, you know, prescribed like they gave me a like a pill steroid and then like an inhalant steroid. So
God.
it was like something was like just it was something with my lungs and breathing, and it was like a super cold / flu. So
Yeah, sounds like COVID.
yeah, I was like, maybe that was COVID, but so last year was like time to rest in between all the craziness, and then this year or this next year, I'm gonna have like a waterfront cottage to myself. So I'm probably just going to bring things to set up and leave there, and then just like whatever happens in those 2 months in my spare time, I'll turn that into something. But
heck yeah! Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
fun.
ready for like a working vacation of sorts.
Oh yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really really cool. Yeah, what time frame was it that you had gotten sick? Like when was that?
Yeah, it was late December or like mid December 2019, and then like middle of January, and then early February. It was like 3 separate times.
No, I had like a fever that wouldn't go away for like 2.5 weeks in December, and it was rough. It was really, really bad. Yeah, and I remember so many people getting sick at that time too. I feel like everyone that shared those SM58s around all the venues around town, and just everyone breathing on them in between sets, not thinking about it.
Yeah, we, you know, for Third Coast, for a while, it was like if I borrowed, you know, a mic to do podcasting, I'd have to like wipe it down with sanitary, you know, wipes, and then, you know, make sure that I clean the, you know, some other part of it, and, or I use a cover that's like disposable and then get rid of the cover. But
No, people would come over to record, and I'd have my little I have like little pop-up closet kind of thing, and I have 3 of them, and so I'll set them up and then drape blankets over it, so you're like in this little blanket igloo, and then I'll put so I was like, you're already in like a blanket fort, so that'll be like help a little bit, and then like I'd send people videos of me like spraying the mics down, and like I promise I'm cleaning my microphones before you're using them, like.
Yeah, we were well, and like the, you know, the old founders entertainment team, when we were brainstorming ideas to like, you know, attempt at like, or, you know, just in general, like how do we do shows during this time? And one of the ideas that Morgan had was getting a UV oven and just like baking all the, you know, like taking off the mic ends and or the covers or whatever, and then just baking a whole tray of mics in UV lights. Just
Oh
like,
man.
and then have like, you know, we'll only have bands come up through the fire escape, and we'll portion that chunk off near the bar during show days, and then we'll leave the side door open so they can just walk from right outside right to the stage. We'll have masks and sanitizing and all the things they'll need right by the stage. That, you know, we'll have a direct path of like, oh, if you need to go out of the public, here's where you go. Like we were, you know, itemizing everything, and then that, of course, that didn't happen, but
Yep.
it was just like, here's all of the things we need to do the thing. And yeah, just trying to, you know, keep precautions, and a lot of it I felt like was just like, you know, among Earth Radio and other bands and stuff, was just like masks and just kind of checking in and being like, okay, I'm not sick, so I think I'm gonna come over with a mask.
Yep, that's pretty much what it was. Yeah, I was wearing a mask whenever I would go places or have people come over and such. But yeah, oh man, no, it was a weird time. It was a very weird time.
Super
I'm hoping
weird.
it doesn't get back to that. It would, yeah, not. I'm hoping.
Yeah, well, and I think of like, I've been trying to touch base with this cellist friend of mine who lives in France, because the last time I talked to her, it was, you know, she was like, oh yeah, there's an 8:00 curfew and you need to be kind of escorted to go get groceries with like your, you know, people in your immediate area or your household. And I was like, that's interesting, but you're also in Europe, so you're an artist that has, you know, the arts are like more subsidized in Europe. So I was
Yeah.
like, how, like, it's this weird, like the measures were more intense, but then you also didn't have to like, you know, claw your way through unemployment to like
Yeah.
survive.
I am actually still. I just had my another meeting for unemployment like 2 days ago. I am
Wow.
still working on my unemployment from that like whole entire thing. Still, it took from like December when it like whenever like things first started going down or whatever. It was like around December or May or something that I applied, and yeah, it just like got caught up in a weird thing, and it's just been caught up. It like was just like pending for like 9 months, and I'd call and they'd be like, oh yeah, we don't know what's going on, like. And I just spoke like to a judge over like the phone, and it was a very strange experience.
Just like,
And
please.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. That would be really nice.
Yeah, the uphill battle just for like, you know, survival. Like I had actually, I know a couple other friends who had this too. I kept getting letters. I got one letter that was like, there was an error and you got $800 a week for like 6 months. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I would have definitely remembered. I got $800 every week for 6 months. And
Yeah, that's.
and then so then at the end of that letter is like, oh, we'll follow up once we know more. And then the second letter was like, we think it's your fault, but it might not be. And I'm like, how is it? What? I could show you where like my bank statement and the receipts, and it's like, I know how much I got paid over this period. And then, you know, months later, I think like the final letter I got was like in July, and it said like, oops, just kidding. It's our fault, and it wasn't you. And I'm like, cool, glad our system is just overwhelmed right now.
Yeah, and that's really what I think. I feel like I've seen so many not here. I've seen so many Facebook statuses about it over the past like year and a half. I feel like I've seen so many people struggling with it, and yeah, it's crazy system.
Crazy system. And well, and then simultaneously too, I just think of like, like I think one of the first like COVID related art anythings I was able to hear was early in 2020. Seth Bernard wrote that like 4-track album at on his farm, and it was just like a little indie release, self-produced, and it was like every song. It's like we weren't even that deep into it yet. I think it was like it came out in like April or something. We weren't even that deep into the weeds yet, and just unless it came out this year, I don't know. The last 2 years are a blur, but
yeah,
I distinctly remember.
I had the same thing when I was trying to think back over the timeline. I'm like, I can't quite remember.
Yeah, because he's since put out another like produced album, so I'm like, is that where was it? But I just know I listened to it and reviewed it, and I remember the feeling of like it was like this like the soul antidote for the past, all the craziness, because all of his songs are like authentic and life affirming and empowering without being cheesy or pandering, and just like, how do you exist? But I guess you do. You're a real person. Yeah. and I was reminded of that. We stayed at his farm on Saturday after our Earth Radio show, and that was just like, he's just this caretaker of this farm, and was like up before all of us, even though we were all up until like 3. And he's like starting to cook breakfast, and I'm like, I thought I got up early. Like you're up.
Yeah. Oh man, that is one thing. I feel like over the past like year and a half though, I've gotten pretty good about like a schedule in terms of like my like waking up and stuff, and actually being pretty good about it. Like a lot of times sitting around, you're like, oh man, I should probably change up my daily routine a little bit. Like yeah,
it's that I feel like I have more of a more of a schedule based on what I schedule, I guess, since I have just I am my boss. And I schedule myself too much, but but the just even the thing of like being making more of an intentional step towards like I've been getting these massage appointments and like the float sessions, and just trying to it started from a place of like, these sound like good ideas, let's try them. And then through it, you start to notice, because I'd always thought a massage was like, you see it at like, oh, it's a luxury spa, and if only us peons could afford such care. As being like kneaded like dough until your stress is gone.
Oh yeah.
And then to see like, oh, if I take advantage of these things, I can not only have that, that relaxation and the stress relief, but then I also get moments of like being able to feel, like, oh, I now see where I carry a lot of stress, or where I'm overworking a part of my body, that, or even like at the piano, like, oh, my posture needs adjusting because I didn't notice I was seated a certain way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been doing a lot more when it comes to just like, I don't know, with songwriting and stuff like that too. I felt like I've had a niche way that I write songs and things, and I felt like I got stuck in a lot of it. And I've been really trying to make a conscious effort to just like break some of that kind of pattern as well. Like, okay, rather than just like sitting down and like playing what I normally play for this time, like I'm going to work on, like, right now I've been trying to like getting around the guitar like fluidly and like just moving in like a circle of fourths and then doing like or like minor thirds and just trying to like not just focusing on like, oh, I'm in this key and like writing these like, oh, these are the chords in this key and like trying to just like be more, I don't know, break free of those kind of things a lot more and just yeah, trying to just expand my like understanding of songwriting because I've always just been like riffs. Yeah, that's what I need. I need riffs, more riffs.
All the
and
riffs.
yeah, the chords will come if I add enough riffs to this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the chords are, but once I add about like 9 of them, layer them up, there's going to be some chords here.
Yeah, there'll definitely
But
be some chords.
so no, I'm trying to be a lot more, yeah, just focusing on my like understanding of stuff and also my piano playing. It's something that I've always just like, oh, I know like my chords and things like that, but actually like being like, okay, inversions and stuff like that. And yeah, just really focusing in on that kind of stuff. And so like, I feel like my practice times lately have been like more expansive than they have been in the past for sure. And that feels good for sure. That feels good.
Yeah. And I even think, you know, like the practice time's been good. And then also like, you know, I feel like I didn't practice as much last year as I did, or even, I guess, you know, I did the streams and stuff, but like practicing and like also just sitting down and just playing, like I didn't do a ton of last year outside of like what I needed to do for various projects and recording. And the thing I found this year was, you know, being able to sit down and like, yes, I'd work on stuff for like a gig or, you know, whatever I need to learn for a thing. And then I would, you know, let myself get, you know, off into noodling land and like try different things and, and like, you know, dumb things like one thing I was trying to do the other day was just hearing like what was it? Jacob Collier mentioned how, you know, because he just knows everything. So he's like,
Yeah.
he sees all these connective threads that you're like, I don't know about that. Let me try that. But one of them was arguing that you can resolve any key with any chord, I guess. So he was just like, you know, in an unrelated key, and then he was playing a phrase in his right hand in E major, and then he resolved it. And it's like, oh, that's just thinking about, you know, some altered scale, or like, you know, if you recontextualize those notes a certain way, it's like, oh, this is actually kind of a, you know, an altered dominant scale, or this is kind of a, you know, this mood. And
Yeah.
so it was like, oh, let me just try, you know, being in a key and doing a progression, you know, like I was playing through Breezin' because that George Benson tune,
Oh
because
yeah.
May wanted to start the set. I subbed for May Erlewine on Sunday, so I, you know, or not for her. I wasn't May. I subbed in her band. I was May Erlewine on Sunday. Might have noticed some differences in how she didn't know any of her songs and was not May Erlewine. And so I was playing, you know, Breezin's just such a, you know, 1-6-2-5 in D, very, you know, just groovy, soulful. And I was like, okay, what if I'm just, you know, playing in an unrelated key? How do I get in and out of it to where it sounds nice? And, you know, some of the notes were like, okay, this would be a cool way to sound weird or a cool way to sound like completely unhinged from the key. But then there are other moments where it was like, oh, I never thought to try and like, you know, like with jazz, trying to land on those like chord tones of, you know, the thirds and the sevenths of a chord, and you're like doing the, you know, the enclosures or the half step approach below or above the note. And I never had thought to like, oh, if I recontextualize the thing, this exercise or this concept in another key, like if I'm playing, you know, B flat major against D major, like what happened, what can I do when I land on the notes that don't necessarily fit in the key? Like where can I like skip to or like alter, like so phrasings became more interesting because I'm thinking in another key, but not really even thinking about B flat, just thinking about like, I'm like, oh, I'm incorporating these extra notes, and what does that mean, and what does it sound like?
Yeah, no, for a minute in some of my songs, I just had this philosophy where I was like, oh, here's the chords, and if I just play this one random weird note, as long as I sing it too, it'll be okay. I don't know why I thought this was like a good idea, but I used it in a few noise songs where I just add in a really terrible note and then like sing it, like in the context of it. And I mean, it was definitely like, it wasn't super untasteful. It was just kind of like borrowing a like chord or something, kind of a feel. But yeah, I just was like, oh yeah, as long as I just like make these weird parts like super defiant, like, and they're just like there, it'll be okay. Like, I just have to own that they're really weird, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, if I lean into it, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I got sucked down a wormhole before this too. I was trying to like play like, I'm trying to figure out how to describe this even. I was essentially just like playing melodies and then like trying to just like keep the same chord under the melody so that I could like kind of just like shift the key underneath the melody the whole time and just kind of like constantly make like like if the melody was, whatever it is, like I would make every note of the melody the seventh in all the chords that I was doing, and like just keep it all that kind of thing, and just trying to do that and then get to a new melody and stuff. But yeah, my keyboard playing isn't that smooth. I have to go really slow. Really slow.
But that's a good way to think, because I would always do this at Grand Valley in the new music ensemble, sometimes with my professor being like, okay, we actually need to tune, but I would, like, okay, give the strings their A, and I would give an A, and then just like, all right, the A is the major seventh, now it's the root, now it's the fifth, now it's the sixth, like just constantly recontextualizing that A. And then that, I think of, there's an album I actually shared earlier today in my Instagram story. I think it's called, I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's Valley of Smoke by Intronaut. Their like second full length album, I think. But that came out, I think, in like 2010, maybe. It's been so long, but they have a song on there called Elegy, and there's a spot where, the bassist is just pedaling one note, just, a cool rhythmic pedaling on one note, and then all the guitars are like voicing different chords with delay, and they're like making this progression over the one note. And that was kind of my first time really thinking about like, oh, I can, notes have all these different functions. You could keep the same note going and just like build a harmony around, just this one note being recontextualized. And now that's like something I like doing for, whenever I get the chance. Or like in jazz, when somebody like, oh, it's an A section, but they take the first half and they're just pedaling one note, like a bass player just dropping the low E, and it's like, oh, now I can go crazy for a second and add whatever I want.
No, it's cool too. Like, I find it's been helpful when I've been trying to like improv two samples, like kind of going full circle back to what we were talking about earlier. When you have those like super stark, like just like repeated things, you almost have to like, I don't know, if you're trying to play with them and stuff and make a chord, I don't know, you have to do some stuff to make it feel natural or whatnot. And yeah, right. I've been finding it's really, really helpful. Like, you have like something that's like skipping or like some notes, or like there was one song the other day where I had like two sections that I made, and like the songs was in the same key, but like because of how I had arranged the samples, the B section was just like, it didn't really like ever feel super resolved. So I was like trying to figure out how I could like play chords behind the whole thing to like make it
Right.
feel kind of more like grounded. And yeah, it's been cool. It's definitely a different approach to writing music than than I've been used to in the past, but it's cool
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's just those little tweaks that like suddenly your brain just starts filling in other gaps of like, oh, I could do that, or to try this, or what if I change it to that, or it, yeah, like a little bit of recontextualizing. Or sometimes I find like learning a new piece of music, um, that opens up an idea of like, oh, I never thought about, this type of movement or this type of, rhythmic idea. Like
Hmm.
let's play around with that in, some other thing.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
yeah, it's just fun. It's fun having like between like gear and playing so many avenues to generate new ideas and find it's still getting in ruts but still finding your way out of them. Even if it's
hmm.
like, oh, I didn't buy anything new, I just stopped using my default, like this is what I use on this pedal.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. As of late, I haven't. It's crazy. I haven't made any huge purchases for like music gear aside from like that MPC in a minute, that thing. And I've just been trying to like kind of, if anything, I've been kind of selling some instruments and getting down to like just like kind of a more bare bones collection, and have been focusing more on just like I can make this sound good. I have a lot of, like you're saying, there's so many tools and so many ways that you can shift things up on your own. Like it's, yeah, no, it's a good time. Love it. Love music.
Yeah. Well, and that I saw a video, the YouTube algorithm randomly recommending a musician video I hadn't seen. Um, and the guy was talking about, it was like it showed his studio with like a ton of gear, and he's like, why I sold a lot of my gear. And he was kind of talking about the same thing where he he wanted to get down to the essentials, but he also felt like he was using a lot of equipment that could do a lot of different things for very specific things, and
Hmm.
it wasn't giving the time and attention to like really dig into the nooks and crannies of like a thing he bought, and instead was just like, oh, this helps me do this in my chain, all right, I'll just leave it there. And now that he was talking about, now that he's pared everything down, he part of it was he was able to use the money to like invest in the treatment of the space, so that improves all of his
Hmm.
recordings. And then he also like realized like one of the synths that he had always had that he thought like, oh, this doesn't really, I need this thing because this one doesn't really do that. Like he's discovering like all, a use case for gear he's always had that he didn't think was usable.
Hmm. Oh
And
yeah.
it's, yeah, great.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so many random weird. I don't know what to call them, garage sale keyboards, and just to mess around with them. I've made like full songs with them sometimes, just so many sounds on them and stuff. Go through. Found one that was really interesting. It only had like 12 sounds on it, and it was like a really cheap, like small keyboard, but it had like a resonance and cutoff, and it was like a digital keyboard, and just like this, it was so weird. Like some of the sounds I could get out of it from just like going to a weird patch and then like adjusting the resonance and stuff, and then using it direct through a bunch of whatever the hell it
Right.
ends up turning out really cool. Uh,
Yeah. Well, and I think of even, when I stayed at Seth's farm, I was in, I guess what he called the little house, which was like a
okay.
two room and a bathroom, like little tiny cabin, and with a kitchen, and um all above, like, various, a couple of spots in the kitchen, above the one, or above both bedroom doors, right near the small little hallway door. um there were all these like, like old Casio and like, Yamaha, like all these toy keyboards. And I was like, oh, why are these all up here? And he's like, oh, I used all these for one of the Egg Tones recordings. And I'm like, that's fun. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize you did that, because that's like, I have a Yamaha VSS 30, the one that has like a you can like, it's got a mic so you can sample things directly to the keyboard and then edit it on the fly.
Whoa, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like it kind of has a little bit of a cult popularity because and I know I'm probably gonna say it wrong. Sufjan Stevens. Sufjan.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I have no idea either.
Sufjan.
Yeah, Sufjan.
I just think of I think it was like a Hard Times article, and it was like, so you mispronounced Sufjan Stevens and you need to move.
Oh man.
But I have one of those, and then this, I think it's a Casio like P15, I think is the name of the model. It's like a tiny little like beige colored keyboard that it came with like 4 of these, like, I don't even know, they're like cartridges, and you put them in this little, what looks like a little tape deck, but it's just like a cartridge slot, and they come with different like accompanying drum loops. So it's just,
okay.
There's like, you can play them, and then there's different things you can click on one part of the keyboard to like change up what's being played. And then it's got some of those like basic accompanying features where, like on a cheaper keyboard where you're playing and then you hit accompanying mode and you press a C and it plays like a C major chord or something. It has buttons for like, oh, you can hit a note and then hit a button, and then that's, a chord, and then you can hit another button and it alters the chord.
Okay.
So it's just like a goofy, tiny little keyboard.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
So I've just been reorganizing stuff here at my house, and then bringing stuff up to my office at Third Coast to be like, all right, how do I get this set up? Like, I just walk in, I turn on a couple things, and all these things are ready to be used.
Yeah.
Rather than just having them sit in the corner or in a box or something.
Oh yeah. No, it's hard having everything like set up and ready to go. Like, I find that no matter like how many cables, how much like space, freaking power strips I have, it's just like way too hard to just have and like, I feel like a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I want to like do something now where I'm going to like run this through this, and then I got to like take a cable from here and I'm going to plug it into this one, and I'm rerouting things now. And no matter how much I clean up my studio space, no matter how much I do it, there's just always a sea of intertangled cables. And and when I need something, I'm usually unplugging something, shifting stuff around so I can fit another keyboard on the table, because now I gotta move that one because I want to play that one with the chain that I set up here. And
yeah, I'm tempted to set up this what is it, the Patulator 8000, which is just like it's like a octagon that has a bunch of in and out quarter-inch lines or quarter-inch stuff, and then on top of it are a bunch of like 1/8-inch cables that you can just like route to different places, so you can have like like pedals on one side and then a bunch of instruments, and then on top you can just like, oh, I want this to go to this pedal chain or this to go to this effect. I haven't used it since the last session I did with Waringa, actually. And he and I have like, I don't know, probably like 4 hours of like improvised ambient music we haven't released yet, but
Uh,
The way we had it set up in the studio, like he had his rig, and this was even before he started playing pedal steel and all that. But my setup, all of the stuff was routed into the patulator, and then there was like a couple master outs, I guess, that I chose.
Okay.
And then before the chain hit the hit the interface, this was all at Amberlit Audio. We put on both outs, we put like a tuner pedal in the chain, so I could quick mute and then like reroute stuff, and then like activate the signal again, and then add an idea.
Oh, that's sweet. That's really cool.
Yeah. So
I used to do back when I was when I would bring just everything I had to venues because I was that guy, and I'd just bring the most obnoxious setup in the world. I had like a side pedal board to my pedal board, and like it was an entire route just so I could like A/B switch, and I had like a dirty and clean, but just from like routing on my board. So I had like, I think it was something ridiculous like it was an octave, or no, it was a double. It was the Earthquaker Tentacle, I think it's called, or something, where it like,
oh yeah,
it adds in like a weird like octave up note that's like, I don't really know how high up it is. I think it's like an octave up, and it's just like blended slightly because you can still hear their like dry signal too. But
right.
So I'd have that, and then I would put that into like a fuzz pedal, and then after the fuzz, I had a compressor, and then after the compressor, I had an EQ, and it was just the most sputtery, distorted, like laser beam fuzz, and yeah, it was insane. And so I would have that, and then I would like be able to flip between that, and then I'd just press a button, and then I would go back to my like jangly, reverby, like other chain that I had all full of chorus and stuff, then over to the other one that was like, yeah, just like super fuzzy. And oh man, yeah, it was kind of not quite the octave thing. That's really cool. The only routing I've ever done was just like that. That's like just A, B, nothing super crazy. I mean, obviously with other stuff I have, but just with guitar and that's really the only like live application I've ever done with it. But.
Yeah, I was looking for and I found it. This was Eli Kahn's old setup. If you can kind of see how ridiculous it looks.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
He's got 4
how
DL.
Many of those? I was gonna say, how many of those are there?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if my camera will focus, but
what? That is crazy looking.
Yeah, it's like if only it wouldn't focus on my face and focus on the phone. But yeah, it's like he's got 4 DL4s, like a Digitech whammy, a couple Digitech reverbs, a boomerang, a MIDI switcher, a I think that's a phaser, and then like I think that's a Strymon Flint. Like just so many sounds, like a big muff, and then the keyboard on it was like a one of those Novation, I think, or no, Arturia Mini Brute, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The like bass.
Yeah. That's what I have one of those. I love that thing so much.
Yeah.
They're so cool.
Yeah, I just can't imagine like bringing, like a tri-folded setup like that anywhere.
No, that's I thought my Dogtown one was insane. That was that's a whole nother level.
And he would like demonstrate too, because now he's condensed it to one big pedal board, and then he's got his hybrid guitar, and then like a Roland, I think a Juno DSI, I think the smaller synth, and then
oh, that's really cool.
The I think one of those like Roland, what is it called? The sampler pad thing
Oh,
SP something or S something. I don't know.
the 404.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just like still does a million things with it. But yeah, when he showed that, it was like, oh yeah, if you run two DL4s into each other, you can do this. And I'm like, I have one and the power supply just broke. Like, how am I supposed to like 4 of these? Like I thought I was good having just one.
That is a pedal that I have never dived into, but I know it has such a like cult following. Like people love that thing. Like they really, really do. And I've never dived into it.
Yeah, that's one of the pedals that's in my office that I want to get set up again, because it's like another layer of looping and another, I get a bunch of different delays out of it. And it can run stereo, so I can, do ping ponging that actually ping pongs.
Yeah, no, that is really nice. That's super nice. Yeah, for a long time I used oh gosh, it was called, I think it's the Pink Mod or something. It's like from Fairfield, and then I ended up getting rid of it. And I got oh gosh, what are they called? It's like Echo Shifter. It's like the Ibanez delay with like it has like a slider on it, and you can like slide and like latch. You can just like latch, and it does like an infinite kind of just delay on it and stuff. It's fun. It's a cool one for sets. With Ryan, I've been doing it if we like have to switch instruments, because we'll like bounce around on instruments in that band. I'll just like roop, 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 and just leave it and then change guitars real quick. Everyone in the audience is just like, I was having a conversation, I was enjoying my beer, and now I have this like looping delay guitar in my ear. Like, what is going on?
Hold on, I have to pay attention to the music now.
It definitely, people get weird for a second when they first hear it. It's funny seeing like everywhere everyone just like kind of shift and like look like, what's happening right now?
Yeah, it reminds me of like, it wasn't an effect, but it was when years ago Kneebody and the Bad Plus came to Holland, and they played at the Knickerbocker Theater, and the Bad Plus, after Kneebody's set, very energetic, groovy, modern, exciting. Like Bad Plus, they started their set super out and free, they did it for long enough where you saw like a bunch of students that were like, oh, okay, I'm good, we can go. And, people getting up and leaving. And then they kind of looked around the room and they're like, all right, I think everyone who wants to be here is here. And then they cut right into the songs off their new record, and everyone was like, ah. It's just that effect of like, all right, are you really fans of live music? Because we're not gonna make it easy.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
It was just like it was that moment of being like, oh yeah, I'm in control of what's happening musically, not necessarily just the audience.
Oh yeah,
I get to dictate how I do things, and it's not my fault if you misinterpret something when I've clearly laid out like, this is what I do. And like, this is what this group in particular does. Like, it's like the people who go see the Strange Beautiful Music Festival in Detroit. They're signing on to like, it's gonna get weird. You don't know what part of it. It could be this noise band. It could be the dude doing solo tam tam and electronics for 45 minutes. It could be Clem Fortuna doing another set of microtonal piano. It could be what's his name? Ben Willis from Sajtak. He has a project where he puts on like a giant crane mask and like plays, bass with effects.
Jesus.
Like it's like you'll get to Steve Reich's Music for 18, or you'll get to, New Music Detroit playing a more tonal, groovy, modern piece. But right now, this trio's playing John Zorn, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. Like,
oh man.
Just the experience of it all yeah, people going to those types of festivals to really get, really challenge their love of music, but also
Oh yeah.
experience things they've never, like there's a dude, I think his stage name is Onyx, like Onyx, and he just builds these like 3D printed like cybernetic, like
What?
gloves and like skeletal suits, and he like MIDI maps it to like, processes. So as things are happening, he's able to like, create a filter or like, latch something on with a motion, or like, Wayne State has a music technology ensemble that'll like, hack an Xbox Connect and like grid chunks of the floor so that when a sax player like is playing, he can jump into like a predetermined grid and like there's the delay, and then jumps out and he's back to normal, jumps in there, oh there's
Whoa,
reverb. Like it's crazy what
that's
people
really
can
crazy.
do.
Dang, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's a festival that happens like I think the week
Yeah.
after the Jazz Fest, like the week or the next or 2 weeks after the Jazz Fest
Okay.
in September.
Okay. Dang. No, that would be really cool to see. That sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting blend of like, you know, the people who are making the weird stuff also might be in the symphony, and you start to see the other side of like, oh, this is where this is what I'm not fully engaged in when I see, or when I pass by a symphony performance or something. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, he plays violin, cool. But then you see that same person do some crazy thing with tech, or something that's like a little bit more theatrical, but they're still having to play their instrument and they're doing staging. And yeah, it's like a festival that, because it's geared towards like the contemporary music, contemporary chamber space, um it it's a mix of like, if you want to see weird stuff and you're just some guy, like this is the place. If you want to perform like super out music and like kind of blur the line of like whatever genre you're expected to play in, usually like you can come do that.
Okay.
it's
That's
just
really
like a
cool.
playground.
No, that's really cool. Honestly, Detroit, I constantly just find more and more stuff over there. There is so much going on over in that city. It's nuts. The music scene it's so big. Like it's so big.
It's well, and I think of like, I saw a photo in the story of the bass player I was hiring for my residencies with Madison, John Muir Cotton, killer bass player, electric and upright. And
Okay.
he does I feel like he's working all the time, and it's never a gig that's just like, oh, I'm playing, the jazz brunch at the, hole in the wall place for $50. It's like, oh, I'm spending a month in Aspen playing for like this concert series, or,
Yeah.
but he had a photo on a story of like, I messaged him, I'm like, this is kind of like the Detroit young artist equivalent of like that photo of all the jazz artists standing outside of the porch in Harlem. Like, oh, there's Brandon Rose, and like, what's his name? Lewis Jones and Jordan Anderson, and like all these players who are like multifaceted, like very strong artists that aren't, they aren't just like, oh, we're jazz musicians. They're like creating a lot of cool art and helping other people perform their art, and and they kind of help keep the wheels turning of of the younger scene in Detroit.
Oh, that's really, really cool. That's really cool. It's necessary to have, that's for sure. I mean, gosh, I wouldn't be playing if I didn't have constant people just like throwing stuff at me all the time. And I mean, if you're interested, there's people out there, but it's hard to find sometimes, especially like
Right.
if you live not in Detroit or live in like some random like side place. But I mean, gosh, there's challenges to those places. There's not as many people, but also you get to like New York or someplace like that where you try to like work on music and form bands and stuff, and that's like a whole nother like so huge, like
Yep.
so huge.
So
Yeah,
crazy.
that was one thing I never really noticed going or like really thinking about music or whatnot until like actually getting to go and start leaving Michigan a little bit and playing shows elsewhere and going around. I'm just like, holy crap, like the music scene around is so different in everywhere you go, it's so entirely different. And yeah, I just wasn't expecting it. I was like, oh, it's probably like the same thing. And I mean, like, you're always going to get like similar like themes or whatnot, but like all in all, like it was crazy to me how like every place we went just had such an individual like feel to it and identity. It was cool.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm hoping to do more of next year is, I have just having friends in all these different like music cities, like being able to go, even if it's just for a weekend, like, or, earlier in a week, see these people in these places and try and, take in a little bit of other parts of the country. Just, yeah. Cause I think, NAMM was kind of one of the reasons I started thinking about it, but then even back to like, the first little tours I was doing with like the Grand Valley New Music Ensemble, and then, short little runs out of the state with MISPA, just seeing like just the differences in different scenes and like, oh, we don't have this here and they do a good job of this thing at this venue, or this town is super, like near Arches National Park. It's so tiny, but it's such a cool, spot to just see for a couple days. And, yeah. And, I have a friend who she was working for a sound company out in California, and she's now working with, I think with that same company again, but she lives in Michigan.
Okay.
And she's out on the road with Blue October, and she'll post different travel things. And I'm like, yeah, I do miss like those little mundane, like, okay, we loaded in, we still got 4 hours till our set. Let's, wander around the town for a couple hours and then like go back to the venue and grab food, check out the opener. And then, like the other parts of tour that aren't just like, hurry, get to the gig, hurry. Okay, start up. Okay, play. Thank you. Did we sell merch? Okay, does everyone got it? Next city. Like,
yeah,
just having those moments to hang out and explore a town that you normally wouldn't get to see that often.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I saw this post during quarantine where it was like, yeah, it's been getting so bad that I like loaded all my gear like down into my car, drove around for like 4 hours, got to my house, loaded it back up into the room, played a set, like got back down into my car, drove for a little bit, came back home and like put in some like already like just like really like bad like boneless chicken wings or something, like and stale beer, and then I like loaded my car up finally after all that, and then like drove for like 4 hours and then got home and then like watched movies into like the late night and like, just like trying to simulate the gigging experience again, like
Yeah, it's that well, and I feel like I lost that muscle in a good way in aspects too, just being able to take a pause. But it's I haven't had to really rely on like, well, and my body physically is just like, stop with all the things that propped me up over the last few years with school, like all the caffeine, all the late night, whatever eats at wherever, however much I could get for, free, trying to get free food, or like, oh, let's, we have this much credit left. Let's order another appetizer. And now I'm able to be like, oh, what if I replace that with, something that'll help in the longer term. and now I'm starting to see, like, bands that I've been following for a decade, like Periphery, all of them, especially the drummer's really big into like he'll get ready for tour, but then he'll also like work with a trainer and like just get like conditioning up and like stretching and the cold tub therapy things and the ice barrels or whatever he does. And yeah, it's nice seeing like, or like Thundercat, he lost a bunch of weight and he's just been eating a lot cleaner, and it's like, oh yeah, he very much could still shred and be Thundercat if he was just like partying every day, but now he's like, I did that. I
drinking. What was did you ever see his Kenny Beats thing? The thing he did. He drinks like 4 yerba mates or whatever, and they're like 200 milligrams of caffeine, or like just like chugging them down, and he's just like sitting there like shaking in the seat, like
just freaking out.
I've like watching that video, and then also being someone who's drank like an unnecessary like third cup of coffee before a gig and then like rushed way too much. I don't know how he managed to like maintain his cool after drinking all of those things. Like he still played great. Like he played amazing. And there's no way in heck I could do that after.
Well, and it's funny because I feel like at his level, the more proficient you get on an instrument, like the mistakes are still obvious to him, but they're within these tiny gaps in like the fluid motions of his playing, versus like someone who just started and they're like, wrong note, like that visual processing of like, wait, this chord, and meanwhile he's like, oops, oh sorry, about what? I just saw your fingers doing this.
Oh man, no, that genre in general, like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, neo soul, or I'm not quite sure, but it is, yes, it's something. And oh my gosh, like the chops of those guys are just insane. Like all of them, like that whole, like, is it called Is What It Is that his last album?
Yep.
All over that freaking album. My brain just like that, and like anything Flying Lotus touches, my brain just like, it's like verging on anxiety, like trying to comprehend what the hell I'm listening to.
Yeah.
All of these things are happening so much.
Well, and I think Thundercat, he's somehow snuck like fusion into popular music. Like,
oh yeah,
he's doing like, the modern Billy Cobham or Tony Williams, or, and it might be a song about getting drunk at a party, but then all the soloing is just like as fast or like the craziest fusion stuff. And it's like, are people even ready for it? Like they want to dance, and they're still dancing, but like you're throwing stuff at them that's going like, whew, it's just like
just flying insane. Straight past. Yeah. No, I've over the past, I've been obsessed with his music for the first time I heard about him. I've always loved that stuff so much. His album before that, the Something Dead, I don't remember. It's like maybe I'm Dead or something. I can't remember.
Song of the Dead? No. Songs
it's
from
something.
the Dead. Yeah, that EP or whatever.
Yeah, super good. Like, yeah, he's always, and it's crazy. Like, I feel like a lot of his newer stuff too, it's like, it feels a little more electronic, and like in the past there was a lot more like live guitars, live things in his stuff, and now it's like, I don't know, it's still just as hectic and crazy, but he's like just changing it up, doing it in a different texture and stuff. It's fast. That's the one thing that's the one thing that's different about it from like a lot of other stuff that I like listen to. It's just so freaking fast. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, well, and that's partially why I like Nowhere too. Is that they just distill all the music nerd stuff into like dance music, and then like the production's very distinct, and there's times where I'm like, okay, how was that? How did they do that? This song is so fast, and they're like Lewis is playing, probably 3 of the instruments and also and it's crazy. I'm actually gonna go see. It's not until December, but my friends in this band, Dandu, that's
okay.
They've played with Earth Radio when they've come into Michigan a couple times. They're friends of Justin's from when he lived in Colorado for a year.
Okay.
And Dandu is doing a show at the Chop Shop in Chicago with the Lewis Cole Big Band. So
whoa.
It's like we'll see there, Dandu's crazy like video gamey-esque fusion stuff, and then just see all of the people I want to see from the Lewis Cole Nowhere, musician universe all in one space.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
But yeah, I'm excited for actually seeing a show. Like the first show I went back and saw was Mark Rebier.
Yeah.
that was insane. Just his ability to like just take the collective id of a room like clay and just be like, all right, we're gonna make and that and
it was
dance.
Amazing. I was really lucky enough. A buddy of mine, for my birthday, he gave me tickets to Lollapalooza with him, and I was blown away. There's so many bands I wanted to see at that, and but him in particular, it was one where I was like, oh, it'd be super cool to go and see him. And I had no idea what I was like. I've seen the videos, I've seen the stuff online, I've gone down the rabbit hole and watched is it Girls Club? That's what I always think of it being called, but that was like the one that just absolutely killed me, and so it was cool that he did like the double back and like played that at the end, but I was not expecting him to just like pure off the cusp, like I'm just gonna improv this, whatever we're gonna talk about tonight like is gonna just be on the spot, like. And the way he had people come up on stage and just like, I give him so much, like I would get so nervous bringing up like that many drunk people around like gears and cables, and like there was like, as he was like doing the set, like there was this one guy, he like gave him a bottle of champagne and some like, a glass, and he's like sitting there watching him like do his stuff, and he's like leaning, and like the bottle of champagne's like running down, it's just like pouring, and he's like watching him, and I'm like seeing it kind of like get on the table a little bit, and he just doesn't have a freaking care in the world, just like thinking it's the best time of his life. I'm like, man, I could not do that. I could not just start inviting random people up and be like, yeah, you're the new member of my band now. Like, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, part of me like that's to have that level of like fearlessness is a goal to just be able to like go up and do whatever you want in front of whoever, and because I feel like that's half the battle is like you make art, but then the confidence is what like sells it to people, even if it's like like an intimate setting. There's still a level of like confidence in terms of how you can perform it or interact with the audience. And
trying to get things sounding on a stage how they do in your room is tough.
Yeah. And meanwhile, he's like literally just taking what's in his room and putting it on a stage. And like amplifying it times 1,000. So great. But yeah, this has been a great chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice variety of things.
Yeah, no, super. I was wondering going into it, I was like, should I like, I was like, what are we talking about before this? But no, easy enough.
Yeah, it helps just, you know, I just like talking about whatever in music, so it's easy to, you know, musicians can talk about a lot of things.
Yeah. No, we'll have to do another, I don't know if it'll be a gig or whatnot, but the Dogtown thing was fun. It would be great to do another collaboration at some point too. That'd be super cool.
Yeah, I'd be down. Where can people find what you do? You mentioned, you know, the label and the bands, all the things.
Yeah, so like the merch right now, if you go cult, so cult.m4a.com, that goes to just like the website there. You can like, I have like all the most recent songs that have come out, with like Dante Cope, I think is the most recent one that's come out. So like all that, links to all the music are on there, merch is on the website, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also like details to shows and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and you know, I'll have links, you know, wherever they end up, down there for YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
yeah, I can send you some links and stuff as well. Also, yeah, the album release show for the new, EP release show for the new thing I've been working on. That's on the 30th, and so yeah, that's
awesome.
Coming up. And yeah, as always, like pretty much everything is, I talk about all the stuff I'm working on social media and stuff like that. So, you know, all the usual.
Yep, just keep an eye out for everything.
Do you have any gigs? Wait, you have an Earth Radio show coming up, don't you?
Oh yeah, I do. On Friday at the Listening Room, we play 7:30. Tickets are listeningroomgr.com. You can also find it, you know, linked in our Linktree links. And then we also have another show on October 30th. If you want to, you know, flip a coin or, you know, pick a show, we're in Muskegon with Flexidecibel at Unruly Brewing. So definitely bring in
those guys are great.
The party.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, shoot, in that case, I'm pretty sure I don't have anything for once. It's been crazy. The last few Fridays and Saturdays for like just months seem like have been filled up before I can do anything about it. I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't doing anything that day, but now I am. But yeah, I don't think I have anything going on, so I'll probably see you Friday.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you'll be entered to win some merch. We just announced a giveaway, so.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah,
Big.
we're just getting.
Right time.
Yeah, I waited and now I'll get merch. Yeah, well, cool. Then I guess I'll see you on Friday.
All right, man.
Alrighty.
All right, thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for listening to our conversation. It's great to chat with someone who, you know, has a genuine interest in the process of creating music from a lot of different angles, whether it's technology or, you know, the various instruments, various genre influences. You know, if you follow his exploits all around, you know, the West Michigan scene, he's got a bunch of different irons in the fire, so you don't know what thing you might get exposed to. It might be electronic, it might be a solo acoustic thing, you never know. But again, if you enjoyed these conversations that we had, you can check out all of what I do on Patreon, patreon.com/Dutcher Snedeker. That helps support the podcast. DutcherSnedeker.com shows you everything else from album reviews to, you know, videos to my, you know, discography. There's a lot of music you can listen to that I've been involved in as a recording artist. And you can always just hit up my socials. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments or, you know, shoot me an email or message. And we'll see you in the next episode of Mitten Backstage. Take care.